And I'm going to give you an exercise in self-honesty. So take a breath. I want you to take a moment in this way of mastery. And we're going to start out by cultivating really deep self-honesty, which means being honest with myself. And we're going to practice this self-honesty by merely answering these questions. Answering these questions within yourself. So take another deep breath. And ask yourself this question. Have I ever had a murderous thought? Have I ever had a murderous thought? Have I ever wanted to kill someone? Been angry enough, upset enough, or felt enough hate that there was a part of you that had a murderous thought? Just be with that. You don't have to share it with any of us. This is an exercise in self-honesty. Have you ever had a murderous thought? Have you ever had a murderous thought? Don't try to be nicey-nicey. And then ask yourself, have I ever manipulated another mind in order to try to gain what I believe I needed? Have I ever manipulated or attempted to manipulate another person in order to try to gain what you believe you needed? Have you ever had a murderous thought? Have you ever tried to manipulate somebody to get what you need? Next question. Have you ever withdrawn love for the subtle reason of causing hurt or trying to cause hurt to another? Have you ever taken your love back in your perception just to try to get somebody back or to hurt somebody? Have you ever tried to hurt somebody by withdrawing your love for them? Have you ever had a murderous thought? Have you ever manipulated anybody to try to benefit yourself? Have you ever withdrawn your love from anyone purposely to hurt them? This is an exercise in self-honesty. Have you ever had disrespectful sexual fantasies? Have you ever had disrespectful sexual fantasies? Have you ever taken your love back to hurt anybody? Have you ever manipulated someone else in order to hurt them or to get something that you needed? Have you ever had a murderous thought? Have you ever manipulated another person? Have you ever withdrawn your love because you want to hurt somebody? Have you ever had a disrespectful thought? Have you ever hated the world? 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 Have you ever despised yourself? Have you ever despised yourself? Have you ever hated the world? Have you ever had disrespectful sexual fantasies? Have you ever withdrawn your love out of anger? Have you ever manipulated another mind so that you could benefit? Have you ever had a murderous thought? And last, but surely not least, for in truth, if you would consider it, all of these questions emanate out of this question right here. Have you ever hated God? Have you ever hated the Creator? Have you ever hated God? So in perfect self-honesty, the answer to each of those questions can only be, if you're honest with yourself, the answer to those questions could only be yes. Have you ever had a murderous thought? Yes. Have you ever tried to manipulate somebody else for your own gain? Yes. Have you ever withdrawn your love? Yes. Have I ever had disrespectful sexual fantasies? Yes. Have I ever hated this world? Wished I wasn't here? Yes. Have I ever despised myself? Yes. Have I ever hated God? Yes. The honest mind looks upon all that has arisen within it without judgment. For there can be no honesty where there is judgment. So I want you to think well upon the questions that we've asked of you. Then simply take it a step further and ask yourself, has any of that type of thing occurred within my mind recently? Have I felt or thought any of these things recently? Have I had a murderous thought recently? Have I tried to manipulate recently? Have I withdrawn love recently? Have I had disrespectful sexual fantasies recently? Have I ever despised myself recently? Have you hated God recently? So I want you to notice what happens now. Pay attention to your mind. Pay attention even with your body and breath. What occurs as you begin to get closer to the truth? Do you notice a little bit of restlessness?
That leads to rows of many experiences and lessons. My shadow side is overcome through realizing the many blessings.
Decide for silence, decide for peace. For healing occurs in the death and degree that your mind is willing to embrace everything that occurs.
That leads to roads of many experiences and lessons. You never know the hand you're gonna get dealt. Remembering childhood, innocence, and brotherhood with no color could never get in the way that was in our hearts. Negative forces pulled us so far apart. Flashes of flames flickering in our eyes. The flame could burn forever if we surrender and give up our selfish pride. It's sunny on the other side. A smile beneath the surface still lives deep inside. Don't give up the fight. Bring back the courage and smiles we had as children. Let's celebrate life.
We're going to be on page 320. We're on page 325. You decide which thoughts will influence your life. That's the name of the section. Anybody care to comment about that exercise?
It's powerful.
How was it powerful for you, Sure?
Just because it was good because I could answer honestly
Wasn't that cool?
and be okay.
Did you find that your face of innocence came up at all that made you want to deny that any of that was true?
Maybe on a couple of them, but
Mhm.
most often not, no.
Was there anyone in here that felt like the answer to any one of those was not yes? Okay.
I wasn't sure about a couple of them.
Okay. Anybody else? Hey! Anybody else?
Does it matter if they were a long time ago?
No.
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 I thought sexual fantasies were just fantasies.
A disrespectful, what would be a disrespectful sexual?
Something that you know the other person would not like. That would be a disrespectful, right?
That would be good, yeah.
I don't know, that sounds a little bit more like masochistic, and that doesn't say damaging sexual, it says disrespectful, and there's a line between like sexual harassment and sexual abuse.
A disrespectful sexual fantasy.
He's not talking about any of that.
He's not actually talking about anything you're actually saying.
Well,
What
right,
you're
but it
just
sounds
thinking.
like there's a difference between disrespectful and like encroaching, like maybe what's the word, like trespassing somebody's boundaries.
Right, because what he's talking about is just all in your head.
Yeah, everything
Yeah,
that I
It's
said.
not about touching or being close
Oh,
or
so
anything.
disrespectful would be like thinking about
Just
something-
thinking about doing something to someone that you know they would not enjoy. That's what he's talking.
Which could be one example, but not all of them.
Okay,
Okay,
gotcha.
yeah, that could be one way that takes.
How should we feel if we answered yes to any of those questions?
That exercise was really just about being honest with yourself and not about how you feel about it. It's just would I be willing to tell the truth and just say, if I was honest with myself, yes, I have tried to manipulate before in my experience. Yes, I have withdrawn my love when I thought somebody didn't do what I wanted them to do. You know, I mean, that's the truth. I have had times I have felt hate for God. You know, everything that, just like Yeshua said, if you're really being honest, you're gonna say yes. You know, if you want to kid around, you're gonna say no. But if you want to be honest, you're gonna say yes. What would be
What page was the exercise?
well, the exercise was on page 264.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late.
And but where I'm going to be tonight is going to be on page 324. I'm going to start with 324, then we'll go with 325. Okay. Beloved and holy friends, feel and understand my delight as I seek to look upon the world in which you abide and allow myself to receive the guidance of my Father in how I can best create communication devices that can touch as many hearts and minds as possible. There's a great advantage to living outside of the realm of the body. I need not spend time on the body. I can see that strike some chords among you. The body is not right. The body is not wrong. The body simply is. Here's a spot right here close to me. I want you all in this circle. I want you just walking in right over here. Being this right over here by me and everybody. All right. Okay. The body isn't right. The body isn't wrong. The body simply is. Your body isn't right. Your body isn't wrong. Your body simply is. In reality, as you have fallen under the spell of the world, interesting, as you have fallen under the spell of the world that you have created for no other reason than you wanted to, you have come to perceive the body in a certain way. First of all, you think that the body is solid when the body is not solid. You think that the body separates you from everybody else in this circle, since as your scientists well know, no two solid objects can occupy the same point of space and time. Scientists are quite right about that. As you look out then, through the eyes of the body, you would actually believe that you dwell within the body, and so you think you have a private domain that is all yours. I think I'm looking out of the body. I think that this is my private domain. Is that true? Then it goes on to say, I love this. He says, and this leads you to the great delusion that you can have private thoughts. It's delusional to believe that you have private thoughts. That's why you can fake like you like somebody and still not get the result that you want to get out of the situation and circumstance. You can smile in somebody's face and hate them, but it's the feelings and the thoughts behind the words that's communicating and not the words that you're using. Like one who comes home after a day of work and closes the front door behind them and then rants and raves about their boss or their coworkers, thinking that the walls of the house are around them and that therefore they have something called privacy. Rest assured that privacy is a great delusion. Deep. I love it. You don't have to believe it, you don't have to accept it, you don't have to welcome it. In reality, the body does not contain you. Rather, you contain the body. So your body is inside of you. You are not inside of your body. That's deep.
I like that.
If it makes it easier for me to see the truth of oneness when I look at it that way, than when I look at it the other way. If the body is inside of the mind, instead of the mind being inside of the body, then we're obviously all joined. Because that means all of us are inside of the mind. The mind, not my mind, the mind. Then it goes on to say, mind is vast, eternal, and unlimited. Mind is what every being that you know participates in, like waves participating in the ocean. This means that anytime you think a thought about anyone, that thought is communicated to him or her. Anytime you think a thought about anyone, they get it.
That's a little scary.
Remember, one of the reasons why I love the Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery is because it doesn't talk like we've learned. And it takes totally different approaches than anything that we've learned. I love that. I love that because it makes so much more sense to me. He says, now it's quite true that unless they have done enough work to become sensitive to the subtle levels of creation, they won't necessarily be aware consciously that you're thinking a certain thought about them. So even if you think a thought about a person, they may be aware of it, but not be conscious of it. They may not, unless they've done a lot of psychic spiritual growth, they may not be conscious of what you thought about them, but they are aware that you thought about them. How many times have you thought about somebody and then run right into them? And there was just no logical reason why you should have run into that person, but all of a sudden you think about them and bam, they're there. I literally was looking at some pictures of a person, and they called on the phone when I was looking at the picture a few days ago, and I literally had not talked to that person in years. But I was focused in, I was thinking about the good times we had together, and then poof, they called. They were aware that I was thinking about them. And some people will walk up to you and say stuff like, have your ears been buzzing? Because we've been talking about you. Or have you ever walked into a room and knew that people were talking about you? Especially if they got quiet when you came into the room. That's always a good hint. It's a good hint that maybe they were saying something. Yeah, brother.
I always tell people that I'm talking to, they don't think our minds are wired together, that we're not wired together. How many times have you looked over your shoulder to see somebody staring at you?
Right.
Or how many times have you stared at somebody and they turned around and
That's
looked
right.
at you? And we all have had that experience.
I was at a club one night where I do a lot of research work. And hey, my job is to bless people who party. That's my spiritual purpose. And so I was there one night, and I saw this young lady that was dancing with this guy, and for some reason I felt a strong attraction, and I thought she was very pretty, very attractive, and I felt a connection. And in my mind, it wasn't a disrespectful fantasy, but I thought, what would it be like to kiss her? And I thought that, and she stopped, her back was to me, she stopped dancing, and she walked over and she came over and she kissed me. That really happened. Then took me by the hand, took me back over to, and introduced me to the guy that she was with, and the three of us ended up dancing at the rest of the evening, having a great time together. It's true. It's true. I've walked into gatherings and said to the Holy Spirit, I try to walk into social events and try to let go of trying to get or trying to manipulate, okay, or trying to seduce. Those are my three rules. Don't try to get, don't try to manipulate, don't try to seduce. And the Holy Spirit knows who would be perfect for you to connect with. Your higher self knows. So I go now, and I'm here to bless, according to this stuff. I'm here to bless. So I consciously stop, look around, and bless the crowd. Then I sat down, and I closed my eyes, and I said, whoever really, the Holy Spirit knows who would be great for me to connect with or get to know tonight. And I have closed my eyes, and I've done that. And I've opened my eyes and had a person standing right in front of me. And it would say something like, I was sitting over across the way there, and you just look like a really cool person to get to know. You mind if I sit down and talk to you? Those things happen when you start to practice what we're hearing. But what happens is that most people just dismiss things without actually trying them. They just, oh, that couldn't work. And so if your belief creates your reality, and what you perceive in your reality, like we're learning, then your belief will prevent you from having that experience. Mm-hmm. And so to you, it would seem like it's not true. But we don't realize that the reason why things seem like they're not true is because we don't believe them. And so we don't perceive it. So try going into social gatherings from the perspective of what can I give how can I bless, and asking your higher self who would be great for you to connect with. And then if no one shows up, be willing to go, that was for my own best interest. That for whatever reason tonight, I didn't need to connect with anybody that was around here. It wouldn't have been for my own best interest.
Instead of being mad that you didn't meet somebody.
Right, because you already asked.
Yeah.
You asked Spirit, you asked Spirit to be in charge of your evening and to create whatever relationships that would be right for you that evening, and then nothing happened, well then that was your answer. There weren't any relationships that would have been most helpful to you that evening. I mean, every relationship can be helpful, but some are not as pleasant as others in their helpfulness. So I'm talking about helpfulness that you like. Not you made a big error and now Spirit is trying to help you get out of a mess that you've gotten yourself into, which it will do. So then it says, and I'm gonna do like I did tonight, I'm just gonna cover a little bit and then I just throw it open in a minute. It says, be aware consciously that you are thinking a certain thought about them. They may only be aware that suddenly they have a thought about you. So what you think of as you having a thought about somebody actually could be them having a thought about you, and then you having a thought about them because they're having a thought about you.
So sometimes the thoughts that pop in your head aren't your fault, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that some of the thoughts that, since it's one mind, it's all ultimately your thought anyway, but it just looks like it's coming from somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah. Every thought is our thought. But since we think we're separate, we play the game of it was my thought, it was your thought, it was her thought, it was his thought, it was her thought, it was his thought. That's the game we play in separation.
Mm-hmm.
But when you know that it's one mind and we're all a part of it, then it could only be one thought. This is all of us having the same thoughts. What is the benefit of knowing this? The benefit of knowing this is that it radically shifts the communication and the ease of communication that you have with everybody around you. It can make your life infinitely more peaceful if you knew that you could send people love in your mind and effect just a bigger change if you tried to talk to them ego to ego. You can talk to people higher self to higher self, especially someone who you feel really separate from at an ego level. That every time you try to talk to them, it just makes things worse. That's the person you stop talking to verbally and you start talking to higher self to higher self. So this is a great way to talk to family. Okay, then it says, they may only be aware that suddenly they have had a thought of you and a rather funny feeling is going through their body. They will pass it off and not give it a second thought. Likewise, if you think a loving thought 10,000 miles away, someone may suddenly think of you and feel good in their body and not even know why, and just let it go by. Why? Because the belief system says that they must be doing that inside themselves and it has no connection to you. In other words, it's possible for you to feel good because someone else feels good. And we've had that experience before, of thinking that we were down and then just being in the presence of someone else who had a really up, loving energy, you'll find yourself choosing to join in that energy. The truth teaches that the one thing you can share is love, which is joy. But pain is an individual illusion. So when you feel pain, you're not really feeling somebody else's pain. You're really feeling your own pain all the time. If you feel love, that can be something that's being transferred to you because love truly can join, which I think is great. I'm glad that we can feel each other's joy, but we don't necessarily have to feel each other's pain. But we can go into huge empathy and then say we're feeling somebody else's pain. But what you've really done is basically remember what that feels like because you felt it too, and you're projecting it at that moment. But people say, well, I felt some pain and I know the other person felt pain. We can debate it back and forth, but basically what the truth is saying is that only love is real. And that's the only thing that's real. And everything else is our story. Everything else is made up. Everything else is what we're giving ourselves. So that's great. So that means we could benefit from anybody's happiness and anyone's love that anyone is experiencing anywhere right now. That there's anybody that's happy in this whole world, we could tune into it right now. That we could join in. That's good news.
But it doesn't just happen naturally. You have to.
We have to cultivate the state of mind that allows us to be conscious of it.
Right.
Because we are full of blocks that keep us from feeling the love. We are in our own little containers called the ego, the sense of being separate from each other and all our beliefs about ourselves. Then it goes on to say, in reality, thought is the substance of all things. Thought is an impulse of pure energy. It is more subtle than anything in the physical domain. Thought travels far faster than the speed of light. In fact, light is actually a physical occurrence that emerges long after the birthing of the dream of separation. So while a light year can seem to be quite a vast thing in your world of physics, rest assured that thought travels instantaneously. In fact, thought is immediately present everywhere. So as you are a conscious mind, a body mind, abiding in the ocean of pure Christ or love mind, you literally receive the impressions of all thought being thought anywhere. It comes into your auric field, and your auric field is really nothing more than the trawl that seems to separate one wave from another. But in fact, those waves join them one to another. Each one of us have an energy field that's surrounding our bodies called the auric field. And you can tell it because you can feel yourself touch somebody else's. You can sometimes feel like you'll say, you're in my space. Like sometimes you can literally get a physical sensation of another person being in your space. And you'll hear people say that, I feel like they're in my space. That's because your energetic field is touching what appears to be their energetic field. So we are really light beings. We're really energy. And we're energetic beings in consciousness that actually have a body inside of us that we think is us. So really, you are much bigger than your body, but your body is inside of your mind. How do you know that's true? Because you're the one who thinks about it. It's you that's thinking about your body. Your body is really an idea in your mind. That's why you can have one idea of your body, and somebody else can have another idea of your body. Their idea of your body can be really cool. Your idea of your body can suck. And then you'll even wonder why somebody's even attracted to your body. Because they've created a body for you in their mind. So there are as many bodies in here as there are people sitting here. There's as many Earls as there are people sitting in the room. And that's true for every one of us. Every one of us is making up an ego for everybody else in this room. And that ego is our opinion of what or who we think they are. The ego is the story you're telling yourself about each person in the room. So he says we make up an ego for ourselves, and the truth says we make up an ego for everybody around us. And then we judge the ego of another person by thinking about them. So you can change your mind about a person without ever talking to them, right? Well, that's just you changing their ego in your mind. First there was an ego, let's say, that made you feel separate from them. You had a perception of you that made you feel separate from them. Then all of a sudden you think, oh, maybe that's not such a bad person. Now you made an ego that they're okay. And that's how you know the ego isn't real, because you can change your mind about a person without ever talking to them, which means your perception of a person isn't the person at all. Your perception of the person is just your thoughts about them. So who am I really beyond your perception of me? That's who I am. I'm beyond your opinion of me. I'm beyond your thoughts about me. And you're beyond my thoughts about you. All of my thoughts about you is just the ego I'm making up for you. And then I react to it as if it's really you. As a matter of fact, we judge so much, we never bother to ask the person. We just assume our interpretation is correct and then deal with them as if it's true. We don't even go, you know what? I'm having the feeling you don't like me. Is that true? We don't do that. We just go, that person don't like me. Yeah. We don't even take the time. We're so sure about our perception that we don't even question it. So an invisible belief is a belief that you have accepted as true to the point that now you call it a fact. And as soon as you call a belief a fact, you no longer see the belief anymore, but you're acting from it. But you just assume it's real. Let me give you an example. We accept, generally speaking, it's accepted that death is real. The average person believes that death is real, that everyone dies. That's an invisible belief. Why is it an invisible belief? Because we accept it as true without questioning it now. We just go, people die. That's a belief. That's not a fact. That's a belief. But now we say it's a fact. Women just could not make it in corporate America as far as men can. But then we overlook the fact that the CEO of Yahoo is a woman. And all you need is one exception to blow anything. If one woman is in that position, that's a lie about women can't be in that position.
But
You
there's
know.
some things that are absolute truths,
But there's nothing that you can perceive that's an absolute truth.
like in physics and things like that.
Those are still based on this particular realm and this particular dimension, but there are truths that pervade every reality.
It's further than where I'm at. It's
Yeah,
all good.
right now, we can just not want to kick somebody's butt because they take out parking space. We'd
Right.
be way ahead of the game.
All right.
All right. we got a little while to go before enlightenment.
Yeah.
You know, we still get mad about the checkout not being fast enough. So we got a bit to go, you know. So let me stop here, throw it open for questions, comments, discussion.
I'll just say something. I'm no science denier at all. I believe in science, but I think it's by definition open-ended. So it's not an absolute truth. I mean, by definition, it's constantly evolving and being reconsidered, reshaped.
Right.
Interesting.
Law of
Because
thermodynamics
just from the standpoint of the things that science
So
said
there's
was
no
true a few years
scientific
ago.
laws that are just
Well, there's
solid
just nothing
and-
absolute, I would say, because by definition, it's constantly evolving. And
Really? That's
the universe
interesting.
is
The-
expanding.
Well, the truth would say that we're studying would say there are absolute truths that underlie everything, but we in the world of perception where things constantly change, and so we're in the world of relativity, and so in that sense it's completely open-ended because, for instance, when they put the Hubble telescope up, the first thing that happened was what? They found out they were wrong about so much stuff it was ridiculous, and they're still finding out that they're wrong about so much stuff it's ridiculous. And they've also found that the way you think about an experiment has a direct effect on the experiment. So in a sense, the scientists approve what they intend to prove, just
The
like
double
we,
slit-
just like
the
we
double
do the
slit
same thing.
experiment.
We see exactly. We see what we believe we're going to see. So our beliefs affect everything. That in the outcome. Our beliefs literally affect the outcome. But there are universal laws and principles up under the world of perception that we see. And what this is trying to do is to teach us how to let go of those blocks so that we can tap into the love. Don't forget, the only reason why we're doing this ultimately is so we can have love and bliss and peace and joy and abundance and connection and love. That's the only reason why I'm here.
It's not about
You know.
physics.
It's about love.
Yeah.
It's about remembering who we really are, you know. And then anything that's theoretical that you can't prove, the Course teaches that that's just a delaying maneuver anyway. Like anytime, like if we were to get in like really deep discussions about theoretical stuff that we can't prove, the Course would say we're just trying to distract ourselves from the real point that's really being made, which is our thoughts have effect on everything around us. Yes.
When you talked about the aurora, our space.
Yeah.
And someone's in my space, and I feel somewhere else in this book, and I don't remember where it is, he talks about a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
He's
so.
gonna talk about
so,
it in this.
So when you bump into somebody, you know, and you feel you're in one another's space, well, you just don't have that chemistry. Other people you get next to, and you're just there.
Yeah, it's just
You
like
feel
yeah,
good.
Absolutely.
And that's all
Absolutely.
based on your thoughts, your perceptions. And people that I would have probably repelled a year ago before I started into the Course in Miracles, right now I'm melding with.
That's right.
You know,
Absolutely.
so my energy's changing.
That's right.
And
So
I
is
have a
mine.
different- Huh?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. And people that you were around, that you were close to, you would find yourself beginning to separate from them.
Yeah.
Not because you're putting them out of your life, but because your vibrational frequencies are different now.
I'm experiencing that, and I've just been into the course since December.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
but I've been into it deep.
yeah. I've been into December, but I've been in it deep. I'm so glad you've been in it deep too. Me too. Yeah, bro.
I've had plenty of experiences where I've been apart from a significant person in my life, and we have begun communication simultaneously.
Mhm.
It's like so I know that something exists, but what I'm having trouble reconciling is my own caution about believing my perceptions. That I have a perception, maybe it's not right. I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong.
Mhm.
On the other hand, this knowing another's thoughts, I'm just not sure that I'm there yet.
Okay, it was great because it's the next section that we go into is going to get deeper into that, the influence of thoughts and our influence on each other. So it's going to be interesting to get into that one. Thank you.
Okay, so there's something that comes up for me a lot, which is people have a certain listening of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can be around you and create this ego for you, like, wow, this is amazing, he's so cool.
Mm-hmm. I like that ego. Keep it.
You're gonna feel good in my space.
Mm-hmm.
And around some people I feel comfortable and vibrant and around other people I feel small.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this practice of, like, is that an opportunity to
Absolutely.
practice more, and should I continue to be
Although-
around people that make me feel small
You
in
don't have to
space?
worry about that. They'll show up. You don't have to go seek them out. So we can let go of that idea that I need to consciously seek out the people that's going to give me the opportunity to grow. They're going to show up on their own. It's just the opposite. We should be seeking out the people that we feel the love with and the
Right.
peace with. And also remember that every event is neutral and every situation is neutral. It's just that some people I choose to make myself feel peace through, and some people I choose to make myself feel conflict through. So that's what's really happening.
Right.
It's I'm the one that's deciding that some people I'm going to use as a means for me to feel really good, and some people I'm going to use as a means to feel really bad. When that depends on how I want to feel in that moment. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you want to get criticized and judged, you know who to call.
Yeah.
And then if you want to feel good, you also know who to call. You know what I'm saying? You already know how you want to feel about who you contact and who you communicate with. If you know it's a person in your life that tends to judge you all the time, and you find yourself seeking them out and wanting to spend time with them, you have to admit that you really want to experience the judgment that they tend to give at your request. But they also are giving you an opportunity to go beyond those judgments and to really own it. So that's the gift that they give, because they're always making you aware of what it is within your own mind that you need to ask for another way to look at it.
What do you think about those people that you seek their approval and they make you feel small?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Whatever you perceive as the end result,
Yeah.
that would be what you ultimately were seeking to feel.
But you seek that approval. Like, how do you? I don't know.
Well, first of all, you'll get to the point that you realize that the error is seeking their approval. That's the number one error.
That's the problem.
That's the problem, is that you think you need their validation
Right.
in order for you to feel good about yourself.
Right.
But this is the weird part about it. Truth has paradoxes. Don't forget that. Truth has paradoxes. So here's the paradox. The ones that you start to validate yourself for yourself, you'll start attracting people who validate you.
Right.
Whether you really ask for them to validate you or not.
Right.
They just start doing it because you did it. Because it's a mirror. So
Right.
I did it, now they're doing it. I'm not doing it, so they're not doing it.
Right.
I've seen it a million times in teaching. If I come into class and I'm quiet, the class is quiet. If I come into class and generally be very energetic and it's sincere, it's not acting energetic, then the class usually does it. It's a mirror. It's all a mirror. So if you're not seeing any kind of energy coming at you, you really need to ask yourself, how much energy am I sincerely giving out? It's really that simple. So All right. Anybody else would take one more minute of questions, and then we're gonna push forward. That way we get a chance to go forward and discuss.
Well, I was gonna ask you a question, but you may have just answered it. So you were talking about kind of how you're not always sure whether it was your thought that preceded the other person's thought, or whether it was theirs. So I always have this feeling that my boss really doesn't like me very much, but then I'm like, well, maybe it's that I don't really like her, and she's picking up on that, and so then she's reflecting that on me, and so it's like a ping pong game. Like I'm not really sure if it's I don't like her or she doesn't like me or both, you know. And so I was wondering. I think what you might have just said then is like if it's a mirror, then if I change my perception of her and start telling myself that I love her and that she's a good being, or like, I pray for her, whatever, change my perception, then maybe I'll get that response back as well.
Yeah, well, it isn't that you necessarily get a different response from her, but what's going to happen is that you'll be in control of your feelings more, and you'll be more centered, and it really won't matter how she's responding because she won't be able to move you off your center. And that's because if you set it up where if I change my perception, then they're going to change their response, then you're still not really getting to the goal. The goal is I keep my peace no matter how somebody responds. And I'm not going to give my peace up no matter how you react to me, rather than I'm going to try to get everyone around me to react the way that I want them to react, because that's still the same premise. So now here's the paradox of that. Then if you really get to the point where you feel peace because you know that nothing about you depends on how she feels, right? And you really get there, I've seen 90% of the time or even more, they do appear to change. That's the paradox of it, is that when you really don't care because you really are centered, then people tend to look like they've changed. I watched my family change without me saying what I was doing. I changed my perception, and then they seemed to change. But there are some people in my life that as long as I've been studying the Course in Miracles, they haven't changed. They still seem to have the same personality. What's changed is how I let it affect me. So some people are in your life to not change, to show you that your happiness can't depend on somebody else changing. So their job is to never cooperate. They're called, in some circles, worthy opponents. Worthy opponents they do two things. They make you use every single truth that you're studying if you're going to survive. Yeah, and they also teach you that your happiness comes from you and it doesn't come from anywhere else. And y'all all know who I'm talking about. You might be talking about yourself with you, And then there's some people who witness back that you can change your mind and it looks like they changed too. So when you make a big shift, there are three things that are going to happen. Some people are going to change with you, because they're going through the same shift you are. Some people are going to separate from you because they need someone else to play the role that you used to play. And the third are going to be people that you consciously choose to separate from. That you just go, this is going as far as it can go. They're innocent and I'm innocent, but I'm going to choose out of this now. And that's perfectly okay. It's a distortion of your ego to believe you got to stick around people that you don't feel it serves you to be around anymore. It's because of some misguided idea of spirituality. That's a trick, because they're going to be there. Anybody you need to change is going to show up. Okay, so let's go a little bit further.
But you can leave them behind too, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and the truth is you can't really leave anybody behind anyway. They don't need you. There's nobody you can prevent their spiritual growth because you decided you didn't want to deal with them anymore.
No, I'm just saying, they don't have to be in your life anymore. You can leave them behind. They don't have to be in your life.
That's what I'm saying, is that, and I'm agreeing with you, and I'm adding, let go of the idea that if you're not around, they're not going to get what they need. You can leave anybody you want to. They're going to get the love that they need and they deserve, whether you're there or not. So it's not like if you're not there, they're not going to get it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
the Creator isn't that cruel. There's a line in the Course in Miracles says, God loves you too much to make your being nurtured and cared for dependent on what your brothers and sisters believe you deserve. Thank God that I could be loved and helped and nurtured regardless of how anybody else felt I deserved it. Because that's the way we do it. Well, we're going to help each other if I think you deserve it, then I'm going to help you. And the Course is saying that's not the way love works. Love helps you regardless of whether you seem like you deserve it. That's what love does. And I want love. I don't know about you, that's what I want. So he says, you decide which thoughts will influence your life. You decide which thoughts will influence your life. So that's the same as saying, you decide whether your boss's thoughts will influence you. You know what I'm saying? I decide whether or not anything is going to influence me. So it says, all fields of thought then, in a sense, wash up on the shoreline of your being. You elect what influences will enter your spirit. Some of those will pass through, and some you will begin to become identified with. So some of your thoughts you're going to let pass through, some of your thoughts you're going to identify with. So you have some thoughts you identify with and some thoughts you just let pass through your mind. So if I'm insecure and insecure thoughts come through, what am I going to do? I'm going to identify with them. If I'm insecure and thoughts of courage and security come through, what am I going to do? I'm going to let them pass through and not identify with them. So it's almost like you could picture a psychic net. Then you let some things pass through the net, and then some things you allow to get caught in your mental net. But that's going to depend on what you believe about yourself. So if I'm insecure, the insecure thoughts are going to get caught in my net, and I'm going to identify with them. And the secure thoughts are going to pass through, and I'm not going to even see them. If I'm more loving and confident, then the thoughts of confidence and love, I'm going to catch those thoughts. And I'm going to identify with those thoughts. And when someone says I'm not enough, I'm pitiful, I don't even react because those thoughts are going to pass through. So everybody with me on that. So then it goes on to say, you will form an agreement. He says, you will take those thoughts on as your thoughts. So you will form an agreement with the nature of that thought. You will value that thought and therefore create experiences that flow from your agreement. Very important point. That you're going to value a thought. He says, then you're going to have experiences of that thought, but the experience is coming from your agreement with the thought. So as soon as you agree with a thought, you'll have the experience of that thought. So the Course in Miracles teaches that no thought has real power that you make in isolation or by yourself. That the thoughts that have power are the thoughts that you make in agreement. So it gives this example. It says, for instance, before anything can happen to you, there must be agreement. So there's a part of us that loves us and only wants the best for us, and then there's a part of us that doesn't give a damn about us, that thinks we're not enough, right? And so if I have a thought that I'm not enough, and I go in agreement with that thought that I'm not enough, then I give myself the experience because I went into agreement. But I can have the thought that I'm not enough all day long as I don't go into agreement with it, it can't manifest. So the thoughts of love that I have for myself, if I go in agreement with those thoughts, then I'll have experiences of those thoughts. And so he says it's impossible for us to make a decision by ourselves. We always make a decision either with our spiritual self or our ego self. So let's break it down to a physical level like we're on. If I'm going to be in a relationship with you, and I tell you that I want to see myself as a more loving person, right? And then you say, I agree with you. I believe you are a loving person. And I go into agreement and I support you in knowing that you're a loving person. Now my decision to see myself as a loving person has even more power because I joined in that idea. So to me, we have this incredible opportunities in our friendships, in our relationships to make our decisions powerful. But instead of agreeing with each other, in order to create our separation, we have a tendency to disagree. Because the way you make yourself separate is through not agreeing. So if you want to make yourself separate and stand out, you can't agree. And that's why our decisions don't seem to have a lot of power. It's just because we make them in isolation. We don't join. Like many times when I'm working with people in sessions, I say, what is it that you want so I can join with you on that idea? Because if we join together on that idea, it will have much greater power. So if I'm going to have a relationship, I should be forming relationships that we support each other in the highest thoughts that we can possibly have about each other. Not join with someone so that you can be criticized and condemned and judged all the time by them. That you will only be in that relationship if that was what the experience you wanted to have for yourself. So it goes on to say, for virtually all beings born within the human sphere, one such agreement is, I am just the body, and therefore I'm separate from all others. This is merely an agreement, which is a decision to create experience. You are equally free to say, I'm going to stop right here. Let's go back. Most people would say, I am just this body, and I'm separate from everybody else. And so they immediately have the experience of, we are separate and we're in the body. That's exactly what it looks like in this room. We don't realize we are seeing it that way because we are in agreement that that's what we think we are. A room full of separate bodies. So we see a room full of separate bodies. That's what we believe, so that's what we see. So he's saying that's not necessarily the reality. We're just seeing the result of our agreement. So you are attracting people who basically have the same beliefs you do, and that further convinces us that it must be true because we got so many people around us that saying, yeah, we are separate in a body and I am different from you. So again, it's not necessarily the truth. It's just it's what we're going into agreement on, and so that's what we see. So that means we're not trapped in any situation that we're in right now. That means no matter what's going on in your experience, you can have an improvement because it's just your belief that you're experiencing. Because you're going into agreement with the part of you that thinks it's true. So you can't ever use your perception to validate anything but what you believe. So that means your physical senses are lovely liars. They just reflect back to you what you believe. Your senses do not reflect back to you what's true. They just reflect back to you what you believe is true. That's it. So yeah, I see you, but I'm only seeing you as separate from me because I believe you're separate from me. I'm having a problem with my boss, my mama, my sister, my brother, because I believe my beliefs about them. That's what's creating the feeling that I'm having about them. And my ego is going to say, no, it's because of what they're doing. But what they're doing in my perception is just a reflection of my belief about them. So I have the belief about them first, then I have the perception that validates the belief. Then I have the perception, and then I further believe it's true because I see it. So then I create it even more. And so you end up creating this great big cage for yourself that you don't wonder how you got in, because you're using your physical senses to validate a belief that you have. And if you keep the belief, you're going to keep having the same pattern with that person. And the more you tell yourself it's the person, the more you're going to have your pattern with the person. Everybody with me on that? Are you clear on that, gang? All right. If you want to keep the grievance because you want to hurt yourself, then you will stick with the belief even if someone tells you it's not true. So if I want to feel bad, I'm going to say, Earl, this is a bunch of crock, and I don't believe any of this is true. That's because you want to continue to have the experience of the belief that you have about that person. In other words, you want to be right more than you want to be happy. I want to be right about my child more than I want to be happy with my child. Sorry, but that's the way out. So he says, virtually all beings born within the human sphere, one such agreement is, I am just the body, and therefore I am separate from all others. This is merely an agreement, a decision to create experience. You are equally free to say within yourself, I am more than my body. My mind is vast and unlimited. And that is the deeper essence of my identity and my existence. I am in perfect communication with all forms of life at all times. Now, if that was true, you could be in the middle of the desert and be rescued. The advantage of that is you would never be alone and you would never be unable to reach others. Now, how do we know that our telepathic ability is greater than ever before? Our ability to create with each other, mind to mind, thought to thought, directly. Our technology is the witness to it. The outer is a reflection of the inner. So if all of us got cell phones, which puts us into instant communication with each other, no matter where we are, that's got to be a reflection of the fact that mentally we can be in connection with each other no matter where we are. But we believe we need the cell phone to do it. So therefore we create what we call cell phones so that our ego can feel like it logically can understand why I can talk to somebody 5,000 miles away. You say, I can talk to him because I have a cell phone, because you're not ready to admit you could talk to him without a cell phone. So the physical technology that we have is really a reflection of the mental growth that we've had as a race, psychically and mentally. So we're much more in connection with each other telepathically than ever before in history. That's why we can instantaneously communicate with each other through little gadgets. Just like we get on a jet plane and really think we've gone somewhere. It's the same thing. We're not ready to actually appear in England. We need to believe we got on this thing that weighs tons that flies through the air before we get there, which actually is really, for our thought, just as much for our thought as instantaneously appearing in England. If you be honest with yourself, to see something that friggin' big fly through the sky and take you someplace is just as awesome as you're being able to materialize and dematerialize and materialize yourself. So, but we take it for granted. But it's the way our ego can handle going from one place to another. It used to take the pioneer people like 6 and 7 months to get from one end of the country to another. Now we do it in 4 hours. That's because we changed our mind, you see. So we're tapping into greater and greater ways of joining. And some people are already there. There are people so far beyond us in their spiritual development and psychic awakening that we would think they were aliens to us if we met them. And what they do when they're around us, thank goodness, what they do is act ordinary. Just like you do around your friends. They don't know how weird you are. You know what I'm saying? You do the exact same thing. You don't want to freak your parents out. You don't want to freak your friends out. You don't want to freak your children out. So you act like you are normal. But you know you're just doing it so you won't freak them out. They don't know half the things you're doing. Because you don't want to freak them out. Right? So imagine that there are beings that are much more conscious than us that are doing the exact same thing, and you pass by them all the time, and you never know you're around an enlightened master. And a lot of times, they're the people standing on the corner with a sign saying, "Give me some money for food." That's one of their favorite disguises. Is the disguise of the beggar or the homeless person. It's really funny.
Wow.
Yeah, they love that one. To just see who would actually recognize them. And you will notice that there are some people that do that you will feel almost compelled to give to, and there are other people you will walk by all day long and don't even think about giving them any money. And there's some people I found myself just going through my pockets trying to find something, don't even know why, to give it to them. And other ones is like, sorry, don't have nothing for you today, brother. You know, so we don't ever know, why did one person affect us more than the other person? That's just a question I'm throwing out there, you know. He says, I need only withdraw my attention from my perception and of my body to access communication with anyone at any time. Oh, that's so deep. I'll say it again. I need only withdraw my attention. So if I want to have communication with you at any time, Tanika, then I need to withdraw my attention from your body. No wonder men and women have a hard time communicating. That explains the whole thing right there. That's the last thing that we do is withdraw our focus on each other's body. That's the first place we go. And then we wonder why there's no, he says, well, if you want to have access to the mind, if you really want to have real communication, you got to withdraw your attention from the perception of the body. So it's almost like I could hear a woman better if I didn't look at her. Like if I just turned my head and listened to you talking to me, then I could hear what you were saying. Because if I'm looking at your body, I'm probably not paying attention to what you're saying, depending on how your body looks to me, according to my fantasy about what I think I'd like a body to look like. And I bet you it works both ways. That some people, you are so stunned by their physical appearance and your physical attraction to them, that not only do you not hear what they're saying, you don't care what they're saying. If you can get next to them. And you're only listening to them in terms of what they're saying that would allow me to get next to them. The Course teaches that. It says that when you're in a relationship with a person that is not a conscious relationship, they don't care about what you think. They only care about whether what you're thinking is going to bring your body nearer to them, or what you're thinking is going to take your body away from them. So as long as whatever you're thinking and doing does not interrupt their agenda about having your body around, they don't care what you think. But if you come into these classes and all of a sudden your body isn't as available or isn't around as much to meet their need, then but what that guy talking about over there in that class? I better come over there and check him out because he's taking my body away from me. Because you'll start to realize that two bodies being together isn't a relationship. That communication is a relationship. And so when you start to wake up, you're going to be interested in being in a relationship with people you communicate with. And so all of a sudden, you won't be satisfied with just being in a relationship that both of you all's bodies are under the same roof, but your minds are miles apart, and there's no real communication happening. That will no longer be a satisfactory relationship for you when you start to awaken. But when you're asleep, all you care about is that this person who you never talk to is sitting on the couch next to you. That's a relationship. If their body's there, that's a relationship.
We all been there.
All of us still are there. If you be honest with yourself, that's all it is. You're hanging out with people that your bodies are together, but y'all not really sharing your minds. Your bodies are together. You know. So how do we access communication with anyone at any time? By just for a minute withdrawing our attention from our perception of their body. And then you can start to have a real communication with someone.
Say that one more time.
When the focus is off the body is when real communication happens.
I get it now. All right.
And as long as your focus is on the body, it's hard to access real communication, according to what's being said. Okay, boom. Stop again. Questions, comments, anybody want to share?
I like it. It makes a lot of sense.
Does it make a lot of sense to you, brother?
I'm 3 years married now, and this was the first woman that I felt that with.
Felt what?
That we actually communicated and we weren't so distracted by our bodies.
Well, monogamy is built in going beyond the body.
I'm sorry about this.
If you married and you focused in on each other's body, and you've made the decision that you're only going to experience each other's bodies sexually, you pretty much are guaranteeing that you're going to go beyond the body. Because it's almost impossible to continue to focus on the same body sexually and not eventually take the focus off the body and start to put more focus on what's beyond the body. But as long as you're seeking endless experiences with bodies, then you never get a chance sometimes to let yourself go beyond it, because you'll never run out of bodies to have endless experiences with. I tried and I couldn't. So it doesn't work. So in a sense, you all know that's true. Very seldom do you see a person 5 years into a relationship that they have as much sexual attraction and focus on the body with each other as they did when they first started.
No.
There may be some exceptions, and I'll tell you what those exceptions are. Those exceptions are when you really start to love each other and really start to see each other for who you really are. Then you allow yourself to have endless joy with each other no matter what level you're relating on, because you're beginning to realize who you are beyond the body. But if you're just a regular person with a regular attitude about relationships, you're not going to maintain the sexual passion toward that person without it diminishing over a period of time. It ain't gonna, y'all know it's true, because you've all done it, and you've all experienced it. So it, again, that's proving that again, that it's not until you take your perception off the body that some real communication happens, which is really smart if you're in a relationship, because your body's gonna change over time, and if the relationship is based on just your physical attraction, you're gonna lose interest in each other. So, but if you have a love that's beyond the body, because y'all love who you are, then you'll keep having that romantic, loving energy regardless of what your body looks like, because they're in love with you, your consciousness, your being, your energy, and the body just becomes another way for you all to get that communication going with each other. It's no longer the goal. See, when you think you're a body, the body is the goal. When you begin to realize you're more than a body, communication becomes the goal. The mind becomes the goal. Joining becomes the goal. Ta-da! Anybody else? I can tell this is just thrilling everybody tonight. This is just, I don't know when I've seen such joy.
I'm thrilled.
But I'm totally cooled out. I would much rather talk about this than the regular stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody? Yeah.
And backing up to your subliminal communication,
Mm-hmm.
you think about before we had the team had idea that we could improve on perfection when we separated. I would imagine that we didn't even have a language, we just communicated.
Right.
It's
Well,
like,
we don't need
it's
to-
like the colony ants. Nobody's up front saying go left, go right. You know, they're just.
It was interesting. It's funny you said it, because I was reading a nature show the other day that said what determines who's going to be the queen bee is just what she's fed. I thought that was so interesting. It's not like a genetic thing. Anybody could be the queen bee. It just depends on how they're fed, what they're fed, and that's us. If you really think about it, any one of us could be a superstar in any way. It just depends on what thoughts are we feeding ourselves, because we all equally have the opportunity to shine. It's just that some people feed themselves thoughts that make them shine. And a person that's charismatic is a person who what is on the inside they express on the outside. A non-charismatic person is a person who's acting the way they think they should. A charismatic person is a person who's just who they really are. They're just showing it to you, and then you'll be attracted to them every time. But most people have such little self-confidence and so little self-esteem and so much need for validation that they never let what's on the inside come to the outside, because they don't have faith in what's on the inside. So they don't have any charisma. They're looking for approval. The person with charisma is not looking for approval. They're just being who they are. And that's what makes them, even as a teacher, I have to always remind myself, do not go in that room and try to act like a teacher. Like what people think a teacher is supposed to act like. Be Earl. And if whoever can't hang with that, fine. But be Earl. If they need somebody else, they'll go somewhere else. Because you're not going to draw people to you who are there for you if you don't be you. Right? So we play games to get in a relationship, right? And then we end up having to continue to play that role after we get the person, because we projected a lie to begin with, and now you got to keep acting that lie out. And that's what happens with friends sometimes. You change, but you're afraid to say who you are now, so you still pretend you're the person you used to be. Then you feel like when you're around them, you can't be yourself. And so after a while, you don't want to be around them anymore. So you just avoid them, because you don't feel like going into the act you have to go through to be around them, because you're not that way anymore. But that's not their fault. It's your fault, because you're the one that's decided not to be yourself around them.
That is so true.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah. If you're faking it, you have to keep on faking it. If you're pretending you're a certain way to get somebody, you have to keep on pretending you're that way to keep them.
That's me 3 years ago.
Is that right?
I have friends who I pretended that I was just so I can hang out with them,
Mhm.
but they were better than me. And yeah, we fell out pretty fast. But that was a very true statement.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I can't do it. Yeah, bro.
What levels beyond the body are there to communicate?
What levels?
Like, you referenced the body being one level as to seek something. What do you seek beyond that as far as communication?
Well, it's mind to mind. It's direct. See, it already is mind to mind. The course teaches that the only reason we don't communicate with people who we think have died is because we believe you have to have the body to communicate. And it says if we didn't believe that, then we could still be in communication with our loved ones who transition, because they're not bodies any more than we are. But because we don't believe you should be able to communicate with somebody beyond the body, he says that we don't do it. And if they did, it'll scare the hell out of us, which they wouldn't want to do. So it says higher beings don't communicate with us because it would frighten us. And so they give us their thoughts, and which makes perfect sense. You know, he says, but when it won't frighten us, we could literally have the experience of masters materializing right in front of us, teaching us at night at these meetings. But if that happened, he said what would happen would be we would doubt our sanity. Mm-hmm. That would be the first. He says that's the last thing that masters want us to do. Why? Because it's through trusting your own mind and your own sanity that you're going to get to the next level. So the last thing that they want us to do is doubt our sanity. You know, in terms of doubting, in making you doubt your mind. So love is always going to show up in a way that does not increase your fear. And that's always how you can tell when something's coming from love in your life. It will not want you to be more afraid. It won't be trying to shock you. It won't be trying to scare you. It won't be trying to freak you out at all if it's coming from love. If it's coming from fear, he says, it forces itself on you. It doesn't care about what you think, and it doesn't care about what you feel, and it's just about its own agenda. So it's not really that hard to tell who loves you and who don't. Who's demanding and commanding, they don't. Who's inviting, they are. Who is inviting you and who is demanding you? Just ask yourself, who in your life seems to be forcing their energy on you, and who in your life seems to be inviting you?
Seems like there's a lot of gray in there.
Only if you want it to be. Yeah. The gray is only there when you want to stick with something that you know isn't love. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Because if you want to stick with something that you know isn't love, you're going to have to create a gray spot to justify you sticking in it, even though you know it's not right for you. You have to do something to justify, and that becomes the gray area. Okay. The gray area is where I know it's not good for me, but I'm not to the point I can let it go right now. So I'm going to create a gray area.
So it's black and white.
It's really black and white.
It's just hard to see black and white.
Yeah.
For me anyway.
Yeah. Well, for all of us, this is a gray dimension. Yeah. That's why everybody's so confused, because when you read stuff like this, that's why it infuriates our ego, because it is so black and white. It'll say, you are experiencing the results of your beliefs that you are going into agreement on, period. And we want to say, well, what about little children that's born with a blah, 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 blah? And what about the people over in Africa? And blah, 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 blah. See, we always want the gray, see, because we in a world that's based on compromise. This is the world that's based on compromise. Sort of having what you want, sort of not having what you want. And the truth is not like that. The truth is there's love or there's fear. You're either separate or you're joined. You're either happy or you're miserable. You're either connected or you're separate. And we like, no, we can be separate and unseparated at the same time. And you can love somebody and you can still hate them. You know, there's some fear in love. You can love somebody and you're really angry at them because you love them so much. And then the truth comes back, there is no anger in love. Yeah. And see, we can't, you know, what do you mean? You know, because I get angry. So what I got to do is make anger part of love. And he says, well, if anger and love are the same thing, how do you tell them apart? If there's anger in love and love in anger, what the heck difference is between the two? Great question. He says you got to separate them or you'll never know love. You cannot make fear and attack and jealousy and insecurity an attribute of love. If you ever want to know love. Woo! And I want to compromise. I want to believe I love you and I'm attacking you every night. Matter of fact, I'm attacking you because I love you. That's how you know I love you. Because I threw a ball at you. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't throw the ball. Notice I didn't throw the ball at the neighbor, I threw the ball at you. It's because I love you, baby.
It's true though, right? Because they say that the opposite of love is indifference, right?
And the Course says the opposite of love is fear.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm afraid of you, in that instant, I am not loving you. It's just that simple. If I'm afraid to communicate with you, I'm not loving you in that moment.
So I always thought of the opposite of love as indifference.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying that the way I'm saying is the only way to look at it.
No.
Yeah. I'm just saying that that's what I'm just being a medium for this stuff. And it's saying, you know,
it's
that's
great.
all. Yeah. Is that I need to know that. I need to know the opposite of love is fear. Because fear is so natural for me to feel that I need to know that what love is the opposite of that. So if I'm fearing you, I'm not loving you. I'm calling for love from you and with you.
Right.
That's what fear is.
Right.
He says fear is an unconscious recognition that love is being denied you in this moment. So if I say I'm afraid of you, then that's me unconsciously recognizing that in this moment, love isn't happening between us. And that's why I'm afraid of you, because love isn't happening. And guess why it's not happening? Because I'm not giving it. Because I can't give it and not feel it. So whenever you think that somebody doesn't love you, the truth teaches that it's you not loving them. And that's why you don't feel any love between you. It's you not giving it. And then the ego goes, I know I love them. What are you talking about? That's all I've been doing is giving love. And they haven't been treating me right the way they should. And he's like, well, if you were giving love, you wouldn't even care.
Could it also be that you're not giving yourself the love?
Absolutely. Absolutely is because you're not giving, because you can't give someone what you don't have. Absolutely. It's because I'm not loving myself first. And in this world, if you do that, people tell you yourself.
What is escrow?
And that's like physics. You can't give someone.
Escrow. When someone doesn't have money, but they're like the middleman.
Escrow?
Yeah, like they're giving someone money, but they don't really have it. They're just like arranging for the sender and the receiver to have like a kind of purgatory for their like giving. So they're technically giving it, but they don't have it.
Okay.
They're passing it on. They're conduit.
They're
They're conduit.
They're a conduit.
Right. That's not
they
the same
don't really
thing.
have it. They never have anything.
No, whoever is giving it is the one that has it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm giving it and I'm passing it to you, if I have a pen and I pass it to you to pass it to her, it was still me. It was still me was the one that had the pen.
Who's a facilitator for learning if they're just pointing? The finger that points to the moon is not the moon.
Right.
So you're pointing to the moon, but you do have knowledge of the moon, but you don't necessarily have to direct us to the book to like read it.
Right.
So you're giving us a lot by giving us the book.
What I'm giving, in any given moment, here's where you cut through that. In any given moment, you are giving what you have.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you cut through it. Even if I hand the pen to you to hand to her, you still had to have the pen in your hand to pass it to her. So even if it just wasn't but for an instant, you had it, you gave it. If I give you, if I'm
like
passing,
if your net has caught things and you've got those things, like you have a pen, even if you're not identifying with that necessarily for very long, you're still, no matter what, giving all of that out.
Yeah, you again, go back to the basics. Just take it back to the basics. You can only give what you have.
So there's no secret thoughts?
No, there are no secret thoughts.
They're all shared?
They're all shared. And as you become aware of the thoughts. But right now we're still pretending like we have private thoughts. And because we're pretending, it really seems like we do. But we don't. You know, private, and here's another good thing. A private thought, by definition, is a thought that has no power or no reality. Because everything that's real is shared. So any thought that you're hiding it has no reality anyway. Because if it was real, you'd want to give it. If it was real, you want to share it. If it was love, why would you hold it back? If it's not love, you hold it back. You know, if I got a secret that I'm hiding from you, by definition, it's an illusion. So therefore, it really doesn't matter if I tell you or not. It's just whether or not I want to tell you or not. But it's unimportant anyway. Any thoughts y'all have about me that you wouldn't be willing to tell me, by definition, the meaningless thoughts to me? They don't have any value to me. How could it have any value if you're not willing to share it with me? So the mere fact that you, and what is it that people don't want to share in most cases? Thoughts that aren't very loving. Thank you. All of you. Go, just have all the private thoughts about me you want to have if they're not loving. Because by definition, they absolutely are meaningless. Why would you need to hide it if it was real?
So if it's negative, it's not shared though beyond, yeah, okay.
You, in that case, you're the only one that's dealing with the burden of that thought.
Okay.
Your private thought about me that you don't want to share with me is affecting you.
That's like pain versus love.
Yeah. If it's love, you want to give it up. Who bakes an incredibly
What time is it?
It's 8:30.
Yeah. We just been yakking away.
God, it must have been long to y'all. I don't know, but it seems short to me. Okay.
Mid-sentence, 8:30.
8:30. Let's get done.
Quick, pass the bag.
No, that's right. Let me quick pass the bag.
Yeah.
Financial expression of appreciation. I'm gonna complete the thought, but I like to try to keep my word about the time length of the class. So thank you for sharing.